Rising at around 5 a.m., after hitting the snooze button since 4 a.m., Heath and I finally made the drive from our hotel over to the parking area for the dunes in the first light of blue hour. We would have the place all to ourselves. This is what happens when you have Velvia loaded and you need Delta. 15 minutes before sunrise. There's nothing quite like the experience of having a dune field all to yourself as you watch the first rays of the golden sun streak across the sand. Only this raven had arrived before us. I'm out here for sunrise at the Oceano Dunes, and this is the part of the dunes that are not open to the Pismo Beach off-roading areas, so they're pretty pristine. The silence and vastness of these dune fields must be seen and experienced to be appreciated. For now, I'll just let you sit with it. So I'm out here on the Oceano Dunes, and I've just set up my first composition of the morning, the epic, trademark, patent pending Justin Lowry shot of the dunes, right into the rising sun, super wide. I made my first rookie mistake of pulling the dark slide on the wrong side of the film holder and frying a sheet of 8x10 Velvia, which is very expensive and imported from Japan. Awesome. So then I made 2 exposures, one on Velvia 100 for the color and one on Delta 100 for the black and white. And I'm pretty confident about the exposures on both. And I used a 3-stop graduated neutral density filter to knock the sky brightness down, trying to save that dynamic range. We'll see how it turns out. Hopefully at least one of them will work out. And I was very careful with them, so I think the 2 that I did not accidentally fry by pulling the dark side out will actually turn out great, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. But I gotta run around like a chicken with its head cut off looking for new compositions this morning before the sun moves out of position. So let's go. Finally, after days of smoke and cities, it all came together. In my day 2 video, I said that large format film is both frustrating and rewarding. This is one of those times when it all comes together, and I remember exactly why I shoot large format film. The slices of this image you see here are only 1/3 the resolution of my old flatbed scanner, and are represented in compressed form in a video. Imagine the detail you'd see were the image printed wall size and viewed in person. The detail and tonality of large format film are truly mesmerizing. So I've just set up the next composition of the day here, and this one is a very symmetrical, very minimalist composition. It's on black and white Delta 100, and it's just kind of a rectangular horizontal composition like this of these dunes, with the 2 foreground dunes sweeping down to meet in the middle, with the background dune rising behind them in the center, and the deep blue sky appearing a deep shade of gray in the background, and then the foreground should be almost white. So it's a very minimalistic, kind of a contrasty black and white, symmetrical composition. It's the kind of composition I really like. I just like the peacefulness and the simplicity and the minimalism of that composition. It's very, very, very clean, and should be very peaceful and relaxing to look at. And so that's one of the things I just love about these dunes. It's so easy to make compositions like that here. So like I said, that one's on Ilford Delta 100. We counted on maybe 2 hours of photography. That was at 6 a.m. and it's 7:43. So I think we're gonna wrap up soon.
As with the previous exposure, this image achieved exactly what I'd intended and turned out just as I'd envisioned. The composition has this quiet feeling with just enough visual tension to be interesting. It feels as if God reached down from the sky and grabbed the horizon, twisting it just so, and then leaving a giant thumbprint in the sand. The visual balance and harmony here create a minimalist aesthetic that I find peaceful yet powerful, simple yet satisfying.
It looks like we're calling it a day. Heath just texted me he's back at the car, so don't want to keep him waiting. But the sun's pretty high in the sky. I think the light's about finished for this morning. So we're gonna call it a trip, head back down the coast, and we're thinking about trying to stop at Chris Burkard's gallery on the way down. So that should be fun. We'll see if it's open. It's been a pretty good trip. I've exposed 6 sheets of large format film in 3 days, despite some pretty adverse conditions with heavy forest fire smoke blocking out the entire Sierra, and having to drive all the way over here to the coast and completely change our plans, stay in hotels instead of camp. It has been an exercise in limitations and compromises, kind of dealing with combinations of extreme crowds here in California, and also the smoke and wildfires driving everyone out of the Yosemite area and the Sierra, and also Tahoe to some extent, which has really made it pretty much impossible to get campsites. So because of all that, we decided to go and just get a couple of hotels along the coast, and we drove down, visited Carmel, Point Lobos yesterday, and then today Oceano and the Pismo Beach area. So not bad, always fun. You just got to be spontaneous and go with the flow. That's part of the fun of landscape photography, ironically, even though it's really also part of what makes it so difficult, is that you just never really know what you're gonna get. I mean, sometimes nature will just throw you a curveball and you just gotta deal with it. And in this case, pretty big curveball. This trip was made possible thanks to Heath. Check out his channel. He's gonna have videos of this trip here on YouTube. You can also follow him on Instagram. I just want to give him a huge shout out and a big thank you, because without him, this trip would not have happened, because he drove the whole way in his car and I just came along for the ride. So that made it really easy. And sometimes you gotta team up, and teamwork makes the dream work. So definitely great to have friends that are there for you, willing to help out when you're without a vehicle and want to do some landscape photography.
Just when you thought the trip was over, we did make another photography-related stop at the Chris Burkard studio in Pismo Beach, California. Unlike other galleries, this gallery was incredibly friendly and accommodating, and not only allowed us, but encouraged us to film inside. Chris Burkard is a landscape, surf, and adventure travel photographer from Pismo Beach who has traveled the world creating his images of both the natural world and the outdoor lifestyles of those who love it. He has produced a number of videos and books, and if you haven't seen it yet, be sure to watch his film, Under an Arctic Sky, available on Netflix and iTunes, among other places, which is about surfing in Iceland in the winter. While at the studio, Heath bought a new photography backpack, the Mountainsmith 10-40, co-developed with Chris Burkard, and I got to try the unreleased prototype lightweight version of the pack with all my large format gear packed inside. It was the best outdoor photography backpack I've seen yet, and I'd love to get one when they're released later this year. As we drove closer to home, we spotted it. Over and across the entire horizon loomed billowing clouds of smoke. More wildfires had started, and this time far closer to home. So close, in fact, that 21,000 people from my own town would be evacuated from their homes, and fires would ravage the town, destroying several buildings in the process and burning over 22,000 acres of our national forests. Thanks to all the brave efforts of our first responders, these fires have now been mostly contained after about a week of burning. While I wish I could say this was a natural phenomena, it was in fact arson, and I had a front row seat to the fires out my home window. And with that dramatic note, this trip came to a close. I'm Justin Lowry, thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.